team meets this moment, this team behind me, they embody my core beliefs that America is strongest when it works with its allies. Collectively, this team has secured some of the most defining national security and diplomatic achievements in recent memory, made possible through decades of experience working with our partners. That's how we truly keep America safe, without engaging in needless military conflicts and our adversaries in check and terrorists at bay. And that's how we counter terrorism.
That was President-elect Joe Biden earlier when he announced some of his first cabinet picks. As we've been reporting, they will be key members of his foreign policy and national security teams and include some familiar faces. For more on this, let's bring in Michael O'Hanlon. He is a senior fellow and director of research for the Foreign Policy Program at the Brookings Institution, a nonpartisan think tank. Welcome, Michael. Thanks very much for being with us. The people that Mr. Biden is adding to his team are fairly experienced and would seem to signal a return to more traditional diplomacy. So how might our allies be viewing these picks?
Well, I think you're right, and I think allies will generally be happy because, as you know, whether you like Mr. Trump or not, one of the things that he did not have a lot of high regard for was U.S. alliances. He tended to feel that they were obligations more than benefits for American security and burdens on us more than anything else. Certainly the Obama team, where most of these individuals you're talking about now got their experience, did not feel that way, was more traditional, to use that phrase. And so on the issue of allies, perhaps more than anything else, I think you would expect a positive reaction from the world. Of course, that doesn't mean that the policies that would be implemented will be successful, but the first reaction will be one of relief and happiness, I think.
So that's the first reaction. What else might our allies want to actually know about the president-elect's cabinet picks before January 20th?
Well, clearly the Pentagon pick which last I heard is still not known, will be one source of curiosity. But I think it's not so much about the personalities. They're good. They're very good. They're experienced. They're solid. And also they're capable of reflection. I know a number of them personally. These are not arrogant people. These are not stubborn people. Someone like Tony Blinken, for example, an extraordinary, just a genuinely reflective and even self-critical person, but who's nonetheless extremely competent and experienced. So I think that's not going to require any further elaboration. If you were going to ask for how people will react down the road, it's going to depend on the policies. So what does the United States really do about global warming? Getting back into the Paris Accord is the easy part. What do we really do about the Iran nuclear deal? If we get back in, well, great, except the deal starts to expire within a couple of years. So what's going to come next? Okay, we're going to try to have a more balanced approach towards China. That's easy to say. But where are you actually going to be tough on China on economic and intellectual property and technological and even military matters? So I think, you know, the sigh of relief will be welcome, but it won't last that long. And especially since COVID itself is still going to be a huge issue for this incoming team, people are going to want to see results and work together to deliver results, not just be happy that they've now got a more traditional kind of American president and foreign policy team.
Well, last week, top defense officials announced that the Pentagon would be reducing the number of troops in Afghanistan and Iraq to 2,500 in each. Now, the effective date of that reduction is January 15th. Could Mr. Biden reverse that?
He could, but again, this gets to this issue that the bigger policy choices are going to be huge, because right now, under the February 29th agreement between the United States and the Taliban, the United States would have to pull out of Afghanistan by May, irrespective of who's president. And that, by some people's account, would be a formal obligation of the United States. So that's the bigger question for Mr. Biden. Maybe he would reverse the cuts in Afghanistan by a few hundred or 1,000. I don't know. I think there's a good case to do that. I would prefer that myself. But the larger question is, do we go down to zero by the end of the spring? And I sure hope not. But that's one possible option for the United States, that the February 29th agreement, admittedly a Trump administration legacy, but still one created by the U.S. government, that legacy would dictate our complete withdrawal. And Joe Biden was always known as a bit of a skeptic on the Afghanistan mission. So, yes, there's a sigh of relief that we're not just going to wake up to a tweet tomorrow announcing an immediate pullout. But the larger policy choice is no closer to being resolved just because Joe Biden's been elected.
You think adhering to that May date would leave the United States less safe?
Yes, because it increases the chances of a worsening civil war leading to a Taliban victory, and then the possibility of ISIS or al-Qaeda having sanctuaries again on Afghan soil, just as before the 9/11 attacks. I'm not saying any of that is inevitable, but it all becomes more likely if we pull out, because then the Taliban already think they're winning the war, and therefore they expect better terms in any negotiation. If they're leaving altogether, they're going to be even more confident and even more intransigent and demanding. And therefore, I think the peace talks will collapse, and the only way to resolve the matter will effectively be a stepped-up civil war.
As you said, some major foreign policy decisions ahead. Michael O'Hanlon. Michael, thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.